Will the House come to order? Mr. Clerk.
Aloha and good afternoon. Today's invocation will be delivered by Representative Mark M. Nakashima. Will the members who wish to participate please rise?
Please remain seated. Members, several weeks ago, the Junior Chamber International Senate, which I am a member, had a recognition dinner, and we honored two former JCs who continue to serve their communities long after aging out of JCs. We had several guests from the mainland who came to support our program, and on the following day, we took them on a tour of the downtown area, and we started off the day with breakfast. Clyde, who is a senior member of the Hawaii JCI Senate and alumni, was a little late because he woke up early that morning, drove from Central Oahu to the Pagoda Hotel, picked up some other mainland guests, and took them to the airport before joining us for breakfast. We took the guests to Pali Lookout, to the Punch Bowl Memorial Cemetery, and to Aloha Tower. As we left Aloha Tower, my fiance told Clyde, "Wow, you must be really tired. You had a really long day." And Clyde replied and before I go on, Clyde, I think, he's an older gentleman, I guess about 85, and he now walks with a cane following a stroke. And Clyde replied to us that he has only a little bit more time left on his ticker, and he has to make the most of it. And that really struck me, that that he thought enough, that he saw his mortality and wanted to make the most of his life. I turned 60 a little bit later this year, not quite 85. However, with my new lease on life, I hope that I can live every day to the fullest, just like Clyde. No matter what your station in life, I hope that we all strive to live life to the fullest, just like Clyde. Mahalo.
Thank you, Representative Nakashima. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Ayu, Mr. Alcos, Ms. Amato, Ms. Bellotti, Mr. Chun, Ms. Cochran, Mr. Evslin, Mr. Ganadin, Mr. Garcia, Mr. Garrett, Mr. Gates, Mr. Hashem, Mr. Hashimoto, Mr. Holt, Ms. Hussey Burdick, Ms. Ichiyama, Mr. Ilagan, Ms. Kahaloa, Ms. Capella, Mr. Kila, Ms. Kitagawa, Mr. Kobayashi, Mr. Kong, Ms. Lachika, Ms. Lamosao, Ms. Lowen, Ms. Martin, Ms. Martinez, Mr. Matayoshi, Ms. Matsumoto, Mr. Mizuno, Ms. Morikawa, Ms. Nakamura, Mr. Nakashima, Mr. Nishimoto, Mr. Onishi, Ms. Peruso, Mr. Pirik, Ms. Poepoe, Mr. Quinlan, Mr. Sayama, Ms. Souza, Mr. Takayama, Ms. Takenouchi, Mr. Tam, Mr. Tarnas, Mr. Todd, Mr. Ward, Mr. Woodson, Mr. Yamashita, Mr. Speaker.
Present.
Mr. Speaker, all 51 members are present.
Item 2, reading of the journal, Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, may this matter be deferred.
So ordered. Item 3, Mr. Clerk, are there any messages from the governor?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we are in receipt of message number 3 requesting consideration of the noted special purpose revenue bond bills. We are in further receipt of message number 4 transmitting a report previously requested. May these matters be received and filed.
So ordered. Item 4, Mr. Clerk, are there any Senate communications?
Mr. Speaker, there are none.
All right, members, are there any introductions? Representative Mizuno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Visiting Capitol Day are students from Leeward Community College. They are advocates for early childhood education. We have a special education teacher and volunteer advocate for the Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder Organization, Ms. Darlene Chen Scoville. Please stand, Darlene, and please remain standing, members, if we can hold our applause till I have this fine delegation standing as one. You may have seen Ms. Scoville testifying at the Capitol on early education and youth disability bills. Thank you for being here. Next, we have Leeward Community College Early Childhood Education Instructor, Dina Akiu, and her grandson, Loi Miller. Thank you. Thank you, Dina. Please remain standing. We have students, Kristen Guzman, please stand, Chevelle Montalvo, and Braxton Montalvo. They are here today to learn more about the legislative process and their roles as professionals in the field of early education and healthcare. Can we give this fine delegation a warm welcome from the House of Representatives? Thank you. And Mr. Speaker, permission to insert their names into the journal.
So ordered.
Thank you.
The further introductions. Representative Onishi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today, the Pacific community known as the SPC and now known as the South Pacific Community, SPC, now known as the Pacific Community, is made up of 27 member nations and territories by treaty, of which the United States is part of that organization. The members of the SPC have been here this week in Hawaii, and we're scheduled to attend our session, but I haven't seen them yet. But the SPC is the host of the Festival of the Pacific, Arts and Culture, and that event is held every 4 years. Hawaii will be the host for the Hawaii, representing the U.S., will be the host of the 2024 Festival of Pacific, and they were here to review the plans that we have made to hold the festival, visit the venues that we are intending to utilize, the university, the convention center, Iolani Palace, Bishop Museum, etc. And I wanted to introduce them. I don't think they're here yet, but if I can have permission to add their names into the journal.
So ordered.
Thank you, Speaker.
Representative Ward.
Thank you, Speaker. In keeping with that same international spirit, I have a retired Foreign Service officer, a very highly active community member in Hawaii Kai. She is Miss Amy Monk. And she's been here for 3 days this week, so you deserve another recommendation. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Speaker.
Representative Takayama.
Mr. Speaker, I noticed in the gallery several members of JABSOM's OBGYN program. I'd like to welcome to the gallery Dr. Tracy Chen. Would you please stand along with your colleagues from JABSOM? Colleagues, please welcome them to our state legislature.
Representative Nakamura.
Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to introduce to you members of the National Conference of State Legislatures who are here for training today. I'd like to introduce Kurt Stedron. Can you please stand? Stacy Householder and Natalie Wood. Thank you for helping both our office managers, our senior staff, and members with training today. Thank you.
Are there further introductions? Representative Capella.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the gallery today, I want to point out some incredible women's rights activists. fighting for access and reproductive care in the gallery from AAUW as well as Planned Parenthood and many other supporters as well. Please rise and be welcome to your House of Representatives.
Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to also introduce a women's rights activist, Cynthia Barlett, head of Moms for Liberty. Thank you and welcome to your House of Representatives.
Representative Kong.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have the honor of introducing a very prominent Democrat in our midst, Lorna Strand. Welcome to the House of Representatives.
Are there further introductions? If not, members, we're on item 5. Mr. Clerk, are there any floor presentations?
Mr. Speaker, recess, please.
Recess subject to call of the chair. With House come to order. All right, members, we're on item 5, floor presentations. Mr. Clerk, are there any floor presentations?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we have 2 floor presentations today. The first being House Resolution number 217, commending and congratulating the 2022 U.S. Department of Education National Blue Ribbon Schools. This resolution is offered by Representative Woodson.
Representative Woodson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt this resolution.
Representative Takunuchi.
Speaker, I second the motion.
All right, members, is there any discussion? Representative Takunuchi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the Hawaii House of Representatives, I'd like to once again express our sincere thanks to those who guide our Kiki through the early years of their lives in Hawaii's schools and for their exceptional contributions to our community. On this final day of Education Week here at the Capitol, I'm proud to recognize some of the state's top performing schools that have successfully closed achievement gaps and continue to perform with a high level of success. The U.S. Department of Education's National Blue Ribbon Schools program honors students that have demonstrated progress in achieving academic goals and improving performance as measured by state and national assessments. The receipt of this accolade is no doubt a testament to the exemplary work of all administrators, teachers, librarians, faculty, and staff at the schools that have put in countless hours to ensure a high-quality academic experience for their students. To introduce the first school to be awarded, I yield to the representative from Manoa.
Representative Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my honor to recognize Hokulani Elementary School as a 2022 National Blue Ribbon School. As a previous National Blue Ribbon School in 2005 and 2012, Hokulani Elementary School solidified its merit as a top-performing school, receiving the honor for the 3rd time as a 2022 awardee by ranking in the top 15% of Hawaii schools in achievement and outpacing other performance averages statewide by 12 percentage points in English language arts and 30 percentage points in math. Hokulani Elementary School is committed to raising effective problem solvers who are curious and engaged in learning and prioritizes a balanced approach to education through personalized support instruction, timely intervention both individually and in small groups, and specialized learning experiences such as social emotional learning, coding, and art integration of Spanish and Hawaiiana. Hokulani Elementary School focuses on strategically addressing the developing needs of its students by leveraging grant initiatives with programs like Art Bento and Artists in Schools to embed creative and expressive opportunities for students to engage in core curricular standards. Representing Hokulani Elementary School on the floor, we have Principal Irvin Pasalo, as well as Ms. Laurie Luzak, current principal of Stevenson Middle School, but who served as a principal of Hokulani Elementary School from 2015 to 2022. Members, please join me in congratulating Mr. Pasalo, Ms. Luzak, and the Hokulani Elementary School Ohana for once again receiving this prestigious award. Mr. Speaker, I yield back to my colleague from Liliha.
Representative Takunuchi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm also proud to recognize Nu'uanu Elementary School as a 2022 National Blue Ribbon School. As a previous National Blue Ribbon School in 1986, 2003, and 2006, Nu'uanu Elementary School solidified its merit as a consistently top-performing school, proudly earning the honor for a 4th time as a 2022 awardee by exceeding statewide averages in English language arts by 12 percentage points and in math by 14 percentage points, and also ranking in the top 15% in achievement. All educators at Nu'uanu Elementary School are fully licensed, have an average of 16 years of teaching experience, and have demonstrated their commitment to the school by being on staff for an average of 16 and a half years. Nu'uanu Elementary School attributes its academic success to a diverse range of enrichment programs, including specialized learning experiences in performing arts, technology, and social-emotional learning, as well as a variety of extracurricular activities established with partnerships with community organizations. One such group is the school's strong parent organization, Aikane o Nu'uanu, which is credited for fostering strong school community culture and coordination of events, including campus beautifications, the school's pumpkin carving night, movie nights, and their annual family fun night. Joining us to represent Nu'uanu Elementary School is Principal Ned Uemai. Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a round of applause? Can we please give them a ro Speaker, Kahala Elementary School was also named a 2022 Blue Ribbon School, led by Principal Serene Oda, who was unable to join us for Education Week. On behalf of the House of Representatives, I would like to thank the guests in the gallery who have joined us to recognize the school awardees. Welcome to your House of Representatives. If anyone's here, please rise. And Mr. Speaker, I request their names be inserted into the journal.
So ordered. All right, members, we'll take a voice vote on the first floor presentation. All those in favor say aye. Motion is carried. Representative Woodson, please proceed with the certificate and lay presentation. Mr. Clerk, is there a second floor presentation?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, House Resolution number 218, congratulating the 2023 Milken Educator Awardee and 2022 Teacher of Promise Award finalists for the Hilo Waiakea, Ka'u Ke'au Pahoa, Aiea Moanalua Radford, and Pearl City Waipahu complexes. This resolution is offered by Representative Woodson.
Representative Woodson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt the resolution.
Representative Tam.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? Representative Tam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the Hawaii House of Representatives, I would like to also express our sincere thanks to educators of Hawaii schools for their exceptional contributions to our schools and communities. We have the honor of recognizing the recipients of the prestigious Milken Educator Award. The Milken Educator Award, often called the Oscars of Teaching, is awarded annually to early to mid-career K-12 educators who, among other things, further excellence in education, offer strong long-range potential for professional and policy leadership, display exemplary educational accomplishments within and beyond the classroom, and have an engaging and inspiring presence that motivates and impacts students, colleagues, and the community. The following awardees bring diverse talents and experiences to the schools they serve and contribute invaluably to the educational journeys of their students. I am proud to introduce the 2023 Milken Educator Awardee, Esther Kwan. Ms. Kwan first relocated to Hawaii in 2012 as a Teach for America Corps member and is currently the assistant principal at Daniel K. Inouye Elementary School, where she has dedicated 10 years to the Wahiawa community as a teacher and a tutor. She has served on the school community council as a student council advisor and a leader of the Pineapple Academy's Distant Learning Program, which oversees 12 elementary schools in the Lelehua, Mililani, Waialailua complex area. As Daniel K. Inouye Elementary School serves a student population almost entirely composed of military dependents, Esther Kwan is dedicated to helping students overcome challenges associated with family relocation due to military service. She is a Hawaii State Teacher Fellow and has been committed to the professional mentorship and development of her fellow teachers and the success of their students. Mr. Speaker, I yield to the representative from Hamakua.
Representative Nakashima.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my pleasure to recognize Hippolyte Ossie, an exemplary health services teacher at Hilo High School. Dr. Ossie is the 2022 Hilo Waiakea Milken Teacher of Promise. Dr. Ossie holds a Doctor of Pharmacy degree and an extensive background in the healthcare industry, which he has carried over to his career as an educator to provide his students with a unique perspective on the healthcare field and to guide these young minds interested in medicine and healthcare. Dr. Ossie has reached his students' educational experiences with hands-on career technical education training, particularly as it relates to nursing and clinical care. Dr. Ossie is a remarkable example of teamwork, applying the same principles of collaboration and communication within the walls of a hospital to those in the classroom, and he has had profound effects on his pupils. Distinguished by his extraordinary career as well and other well-deserved merits, Dr. Ossie is held in high regard by his school community as an exceptional educator. I yield to my colleague from Hilo.
Representative Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my honor to recognize Annie Henbest as the 2022 Ka'u Keao Pahoa Melkin Teacher of Promise. Ms. Henbest has proudly served young learners as an educator for 10 years, initially as a teacher in Idaho, and later in 2019 as a literacy and technology coach on Hawaii Island at Pahoa High and Intermediate School. She utilizes her current role as vice principal at Pahoa to provide valuable resources to teachers and support their mission to successfully engage with a variety of learning styles. Annie's committed passion as an educator distinguishes her as a true asset to her school, to her community, and to the entire state of Hawaii. I yield my time to the colleague from Kaimuki.
Representative Kobayashi.
Mrs. Speaker, Jessica Lobo Atnip is the 2022 Aea Moanalo Radford Milken Teacher of Promise. Ms. Atnip has taught at Aea Intermediate School for 3 years, starting as an English teacher for grades 7 and 8, and currently is the grade 8 English language and English language arts teacher, and also coordinator with Aea's newly established English language department. Over the course of her career, Ms. Atnip has worked with outstanding educators and forged profound connections with her colleagues and students. She values the incredible progress made by her English language students who have worked extensively with their English language proficiency assessments, an accomplishment noted by several Hawaii representatives. Ms. Atnip, a resident of House District 20, takes great pride in offering unconditional support to her students and is an exceptional and valuable member of her community. Ms. Atnip. I yield to my colleague from Wailai, Kahala.
Representative Passion.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, it is my pleasure to recognize Kisa Matlin as the 2022 Pearl City Waipahu Teacher of Promise. And, anyways, I was gonna say, I look in the stand, I don't see your father. Her father, we all know her father. Her father is Dave Matlin. And I'll give him hell next time for not being here. So, prior to her position at Waipahu High School, Kisa Matlin served 2 years with the Teach for America Dallas-Fort Worth and a term with Kupu's Environmental Education Leadership Program, where she partnered with the Department of Education schools to implement AINA-based curriculum. Matlin is currently in her 3rd year teaching at Waipahu High School, where she works with the Academy of Natural Resources as a science and CET educator. She also serves as a co-advisor of the Academy of Natural Resources Ambassadors Program and Waipahu High School chapter of Future Farmers of America. The impact of Kisa Matlin's work is a testament to her role model and her grandmother, Lillian Shigeko Hatate, who was a Hawaii Department educator for 30 years. Kisa Matlin strives to pay the gift of education and knowledge forward. Thank you very much. In addition to these Milken Teachers of Promise, there are a handful who could not join us for Education Week, including the Milken Educators of Hawaii 2022 Teacher of Promise, Tristan Wynn of Kalani High School. I would also like to honor our other complex area teachers of promise, Keona Ona Mahi, Aloha Lani Lingzi, Brianna Craig, Kayla Motlin, William Covid, Michaela Kalapel. On behalf of the House of Representatives, I would like to thank the guests in the gallery who have joined us to recognize these exceptional Milken educators. Welcome to your House of Representatives. Mr. Speaker, I request their names be inserted into the journal.
So ordered. Thank you. All right, members, we'll take a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. The motion is carried. Representative Woodson, please proceed with the certificate and lay presentation. Members, the chair will call a recess to allow the members of the House to meet and congratulate the honorees. With House come to order, members were on item 6. Representative Nakamura.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt Standing Committee Reports number 1267 through 1327 as listed on pages 2 through 17 and the accompanying Senate bills as may be amended past second reading and be referred to their designated committees.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Is there any discussion, members, beginning with SCR 1267 on page 2? 1267, 1268, 1269, 1270.
Mr. Speaker,
Representative Capella.
1269.
Please proceed.
No vote, please.
So ordered. Representative Pruso.
No vote.
So ordered. 12. Representative Poi Poi.
Reservations.
So ordered. Further discussion. Representative Hussey Burdick.
Reservations.
So ordered. Representative Kahaloa.
Reservations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So ordered. Representative Lowen.
Reservations.
So ordered. Further discussion. If Representative Amato.
With reservations.
So ordered. Okay, we're on 1270. Any discussion? Next page, 1271. Representative Perrick.
No, please.
So ordered. 1272. Representative Perrick.
No, please.
So ordered. Representative Holt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In opposition.
Please proceed.
You know, we live here in Hawaii and we have a Japanese Cultural Center, a Chinese Cultural Center, a Filipino Cultural Center, and we don't have a Hawaiian Cultural Center. This bill was well intended to fund a Hawaiian Cultural Center, but we turned it into a study. I don't think we need to study this anymore, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Representative Souza.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Request for a ruling on a potential conflict.
Please state your potential conflict.
My brother's an OHA trustee.
All right, Representative, the chair's ruling is there is no conflict. This relates to a class of individuals and beneficiaries. Ruling remains in effect through sine die unless circumstances change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Representative Ward.
Speaker, in opposition, may I have the words of the gentleman from downtown Honolulu as my own?
So ordered.
Thank you.
Representative Alcos.
Mr. Speaker, the Hawaiian Culture Center, I think it's a need. I'm for.
In support?
In support.
Please proceed.
I feel that the Hawaiian Culture Center is long overdue, as Rep said, and it's a bridge that we need to build with our Hawaiian people here and show that the state can work with our Hawaiian culture. We have so much Polynesia Culture Center and other culture centers, as he said, and it shouldn't be worried about the finance, the money. I think it can be private funded, it can be funded many different ways, but it's long overdue and we definitely need a Hawaiian Culture Center. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Representative Tam.
Mr. Speaker, in support.
Please proceed.
I appreciate the comments regarding culture centers around the state, but it's also important to note that the many culture centers that we have around the state, such as the Japanese culture centers, are all privately funded, and the only time they ever come for government money is in the form of grant money. The original bill asks for the Hawaiian Cultural Centers to be fully funded by taxpayer dollars, and OHA was asking for $60 million for a pilot program. Your committee decided to turn it into a study to ensure that that money would be spent wisely if we go forward with a cultural center. Thank you.
Representative Capella.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In support.
Please proceed.
I want to thank the chair of the Committee on Culture and the Arts. As a member, I am very supportive of this measure. I think that we definitely need a Hawaiian Cultural Center in our state and in all of our communities. I have a Native Hawaiian Cultural Center in Ka'u that community members have been trying to build for the past 30 years. They've applied for grant and aids, and they've finally gotten some funding. And my fear is that if we have just one Native Hawaiian Cultural Center, that it will be based in Honolulu. And I think that we have to find ways to make sure that all of our communities, especially those in rural communities or on neighbor islands, they also have access. Thank you.
So for Representative Holt, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Still in opposition.
Please proceed.
Just like to remind the body, we're still not fully funding OHA's pro rata share of the ceded lands which were stolen. Thank you.
All right, can we move on to 1273? Representative Ward.
Speaker, still in opposition. I
Please
would like
proceed.
to make a historical note, if I may. For the last 40 to 50 years, we've talked about, hey, we got to get a host fab, we got to get a host culture. Cultural Center. We want to do as well as the Polynesian Culture Center. We've got this in other Pacific islands. But the funny thing is that the funds have not been there. This bill goes back to where we were decades ago saying, hey, yeah, we got to have a culture center, which is good. But if there's not the money, Mr. Speaker, we're just talking as we have for the last few decades. And if there's any part of this community that needs a boost in the culture, it's the Hawaiian community, which, and I'm not going to go on the Department of Hawaiian Homelands and 100 years, 28,000 on the wait list. But the Hawaiians have been at the back of the line for so many years, and this bill shows that there's not a priority for the host culture to have a priority for a cultural center, which is sorely needed. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a mini step, but it's actually a step backwards as we go forward. Thank you.
Can we move on, members? 1273. Any discussion? 1274. Next page, 1275, 1276, 1277, 1278. Next page, 1279, 1280, 1281, 1282. Next page, 1283, 1284, 1285, 1286. Representative Garcia?
No vote.
So ordered. Next page, 1287. Representative Garcia?
With reservations.
So ordered. 1288, 1289, 1290. Next page, 1291, 1292. Representative Prusso?
A no vote on 1292.
So ordered. Representative Capella?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Same request.
So ordered. 1293. Representative Garcia?
With reservations.
So ordered. 1294. Next page, 1295. Representative Hussey Burdick.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, at the appropriate time, can we go back to 1294?
Yes, please proceed on 1294.
Reservation.
So ordered. Further discussion on 1294? If not, 1295, 1296. Representative Capella?
1295.
Please proceed.
No vote.
So ordered. 1296, 1297, 1298.
Mr. Speaker,
Representative Prusso?
on STANCOM report number 1297.
Please proceed.
No vote.
So ordered. Further discussion on 1297? If not, 1298, 1299. Representative Ward?
Speaker, 1299, strong support.
Please proceed.
This builds micro housing for the homeless and particularly for the Hawaiian community. In contrast to what I just spoke about, the prioritization of the Hawaiian community, I would do a juxtaposition of another bill that says if you live on the beach, we're going to give you a relocation allowance. And I know that's not exactly about what this bill is, but it says if you're Hawaiian and you live on the beach, we're going to give you a micro house. Where's the equity in that, Mr. Speaker? So I just say we got to keep the Hawaiian issue in perspective, and housing is a key because it's the most homeless. 63% of the Hawaiian community are the Alice families, asset limited, income challenged earners. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So further discussion on 1299? If not, 1300, 1301, 1302. Next page, 1303, 1304, 1305, 1306, 1307, 1308. Representative Garcia?
With reservations.
So ordered. 1309. Representative Lamasau?
With reservation.
So ordered. 1310. Next page, 13.
Mr. Speaker,
Representative Lamasau.
1310 with reservations.
On 1310?
Yes.
So ordered. Further discussion on 1310? If not, next page, 1311, 1312, 1313, 1314. Representative Capella?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. No vote.
On 1314?
On 1314, yes.
So
And a brief
ordered.
comment.
Please proceed.
I think that this measure is premature, and I think that we should support the authority that we worked so hard to stand up last year.
Okay, is there further discussion? If not, 1315.
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Ganadin?
SCR 1314.
Please proceed.
No vote.
So ordered. Representative Prusso?
Same request.
So ordered. Representative Hussey Burdick?
Reservation.
So ordered. Further discussion? If not, next page, 1315. Representative Prusso,
With reservations, with a brief comment.
please proceed.
I'm deeply concerned that we are allocating so many resources and so much power to ADC, an attached agency, which I still feel is deeply flawed and unreformed.
Is there further discussion? If not, 1316, 1317, 1318. Next page, 1319, 1320. Representative Garcia,
No vote.
so ordered. Representative Kong,
With reservations.
so ordered. Representative Ward,
Speaker, no vote with a brief comment,
please
please.
proceed.
Mr. Speaker, this is the reorganization of the chairs on the Titanic, or creating the Hawaii Tourism Authority to become the destination management. You know, even the name of it is not very inspiring. Destination management sounds like a very dull, bureaucratic, officious kind of a statement. The point is, Mr. Speaker, we're punishing what otherwise the Hawaii Tourism Authority did a number of years ago when we reached 10 million visitors. We said, oh my God, that's too much. Well, those who put their foot on the accelerator know how to pull it back, yet now we're rearranging all of this for the sake of what? So we can tell people in our district, well, we're going to manage tourism. Well, the HTA now has a managed tourism plan. Why don't we let them execute it? Why are we changing all of this now in the middle of the stream? They've done a good job. We are rewarding their merit with, we're damning them with faint praise, quite frankly, Mr. Speaker. For those reasons, I think we need to look at this in a little bit more serious manner, and this is rather a flip reaction to what, well, we've got too many complaints in our neighborhood, we have too many things that are going on. Well, that's fine, but the ones who did the success are the ones who can manage it successfully. For those reasons, Mr. Speaker, I think this bill needs a lot more contemplation. Thank you.
Representative Quinlan,
In strong support, Mr. Speaker.
please proceed.
And may I first say how hurt I am to hear my colleague describe the Office of Destination Management as boring and dull. It's the furthest thing from it, and I personally am extremely excited. Thank you.
Representative Kahalua,
Request a ruling on a potential conflict of interest.
please state your potential conflict.
My fiance works for the Hawaii Tourism Authority.
All right, the chair's ruling is that this measure applies to a class of people. There is no conflict. It remains this ruling remains in effect through sine die unless circumstances change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there further discussion on 1320? Representative Perrick,
No, please.
so ordered. Okay, 1321. Representative Garcia,
Reservations.
so ordered. Next page, 1322. 1323. Representative Perrick,
1323, no, please.
so ordered. Representative Garcia, please proceed with your remarks.
So this measure, I believe, describes, or there are resources available to people who want to transfer their cesspools or being required by the state to transition their cesspools. But the reimbursements are only up to $20,000, and many cesspool conversions require $50,000. That's a standing balance of $30,000 that the homeowner would need to have. A lot of my constituents and constituents from around different districts have called my office asking me to vote no, so to honor their preference, I'm voting no.
Representative Garcia,
No vote.
so ordered. Representative Lowen,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In support and brief comment.
please proceed.
The cost of cesspool conversion varies depending, so I think to make a statement that 50,000 is the amount across the board is pretty off base. That would be a really high end, first of all. Second of all, we actually amended this bill in committee to add a provision that Department of Health can grant exemptions based on financial need, demonstration of financial need or inability to pay for the conversion for up to 5 years at a time. So to me, the effect of this bill would be to, along with the other measures that we're considering this session, you know, really put a sense of urgency on accomplishing these conversions, but also this bill would really shift the focus to those who can afford to do the conversions and live in the priority areas that have the most cesspools that are causing the most consequences to the environment and to the health of our water systems.
Representative Ward,
Chair, I want to thank the, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the chair for...
in support or opposition?
With reservations.
Please proceed.
My reservation is very much lightened because of what she said. Those who have a hardship, who need time, who need to borrow money. I think it gives an opportunity for that. In Hawaii Kai, I have a number of farmers who have cesspools. They are in a bit of a strait because their leases are only like less than 2 years away. Because of that, Mr. Speaker, this bill is rather pressing and important. But at the same time, Mr. Speaker, we as the state of Hawaii have to take some of the responsibility. We knew about these 88,000 cesspools decades ago. And right now, we're saying, okay, let's hurry up and enforce it rather than having done it in a systematic, smooth way within the last 10 or 20 years. Can you imagine that these have been possibly leaching into water and other very sanitary places that we should have no sewage related to or near in any shape or form. For those reasons, Mr. Speaker, I think this needs to be done, and hopefully there's enough money for enough people, not on a wait list that says, well, you're not part of the first 200 to do it. Like I heard the city and county has something for scholarships, but if you're not on the list high up, you're not going to get it. For those reasons, Mr. Speaker, we got to get rid of the 88,000 cesspools, but we have to do it systematically. Thank you.
All right, members, can we move on to 1324? 1324, any discussion? Representative Lowen.
At the appropriate time, I just want to very briefly go back to 1323.
Please proceed on 1323.
Thanks. Just very quickly, I really appreciate having the representative from Hawaii Kai on my committee. But I would just say, according to the UH cesspool prioritization tool that the provisions of this bill are based on, there are no cesspools in Hawaii Kai that fall under that. And I think the cesspools being referred to are gang cesspools or large capacity cesspools, which have been illegal under the federal law from the EPA since 2005.
All right, members, 1324, any discussion?
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Ward.
The good representative from the Big Island is correct, except for
Representative Ward, are you in 1324?
In the bill that we just spoke about in the cesspool, 1323, sir.
Please proceed.
The fact of the matter is they have been categorized as large capacity cesspools. They don't agree with it, but I think that's the conundrum that we're faced with in Hawaii Kai. Thank you.
All right, members, we're on 1324, any discussion? 1325, next page, 1326, 1327, Representative Garcia.
Reservations.
So ordered. Representative Peruso.
With reservations and a brief comment,
Please proceed.
I wanted to thank the chair of EEP for her amendments to this measure. I think that it's a really important conversation. We need to look at how the impacted communities are being brought into the conversation around royalties on energy projects on ceded or stolen lands. And this measure gives us an opportunity to have that conversation.
Representative Capella.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With reservations, I think that this bill is interesting. There's a portion of it that's really fantastic where 20% of the funding from the royalties would be going back to OHA for public trust revenue, and I think that that's wonderful. Currently, 30% of the money goes to the county, 70% goes to the general fund. That 30% that goes to the county, most of it stays in the southern half of Hawaii Island with families and areas that are so rural, so remote that even lack access to running water. So to watch that money from the county be taken away and put in other spaces makes me a little sad, specifically because it's my community that would be greatly even further impacted. And what would happen with this bill is that 10%, they would only be getting 10% of that funding. So the county would only be getting 10%, and then the rest of the money would be going to OHA. I'm hoping that in the next committee, they'll be able to look at the possibility of that 20% coming from the general fund instead of coming specifically from the county. Thank you.
Representative Kahalua.
With reservations, and I would like to request to adopt the words from the representative from Wahiawa.
So ordered. Representative Onishi.
Reservations, Speaker.
So ordered. Representative Hussey Burdick.
Reservations.
So ordered. Representative Ward.
Speaker, reservations, and may the words of the good representative from the Big Island be adopted as if they were my own.
So ordered. Further discussion. Any discussion on these items? If not, we'll be taking a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. All right, members, we're on item 7, third reading. For the motion to suspend the rules, Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules of the House in order to consider certain Senate bills for third reading by consent calendar.
Representative Garcia.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. For the motion to pass third reading, Representative Nakamura.
Mr. Speaker, I move that Senate Bill Number 1, SD2, as listed on page 17, pass third reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All right, is there any discussion? Representative Matsumoto.
Mr. Speaker, I have a floor amendment to offer.
Mr. Clerk, have copies of the floor amendment been distributed to the members?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, copies of floor amendment number 4 have been distributed.
Representative Matsumoto.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the floor amendment.
Representative Garcia.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Is there any discussion on floor amendment number 4? Representative Matsumoto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand in support of the floor amendment. This is the first floor amendment that I have ever offered in my 11 sessions here at the legislature. Very simply, what this amendment aims to do is revert back to our current law in relation to a minor by leaving the definition of medical care and services as it says in the HRS 577, the diagnosis, examination, and administration of medication in the treatment of venereal diseases, pregnancy, and family planning services. It shall not include surgery or any treatment to induce abortion. The part we want to keep is it shall not include surgery. This is a reasonable amendment. It leaves every other section of this bill alone and essentially is just reverting back to our current law where minors cannot obtain a surgical abortion without parental consent. The parental consent issue is the most important one for me. I have 2 children, a son and a daughter, and I can't imagine them having a surgical procedure without me knowing. How do I help to care for my child physically, as well as mentally and emotionally, if I'm to be left out of the equation? I know there are scenarios where children are left in heartbreaking and horrible situations where parents are not part of the equation, or even worse, where they are part of the problem. However, we already have statutes in place to deal with these types of issues. And if it isn't enough, we can work to strengthen those specific areas, not take away all parents' abilities to be involved in their children's lives in this area. In little ways, year after year, we have slowly chipped away at parental rights and parents' ability to raise their children. Again, this amendment keeps one sentence that this bill has struck out of our current law and leaves everything else. It is a reasonable amendment, and I ask this body for your support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Bellotti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In opposition.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, in opposition for 2 reasons. First, this floor amendment is fatally flawed as it does not comport with our drafting requirements. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, and I, as the mother of 2 daughters, understanding the concerns of the good representative from Mililani, puts forward to this body that this amendment completely undercuts the passage of Senate Bill 1, which seeks to modernize our statutes and protect the rights and private healthcare choices best made between a patient and their health care provider that have been in existence in our state for over 50 years. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there further discussion? If not, we'll be taking a voice vote on the floor amendment. All those in favor of the floor amendment, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. No. All right, the floor amendment fails.
Mr. Speaker,
Representative Perrick.
I make a motion that we do a hand count vote.
Could take a recess subject to the call of the chair. Recess. All right, members, will the House come to order? We're back on floor amendments. Mr. Clerk, is there a second floor amendment? Representative Matsumoto. Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a floor amendment to offer.
Mr. Clerk, have copies of the floor amendment been distributed to the members?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, copies of floor amendment number 5 have been distributed.
Representative Garcia.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt this floor amendment.
Representative Matsumoto.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This floor amendment is pretty simple. It just knocks out one word in SB 1, Senate Draft 2, the word 14, and replaces it with the word 16 to be in alignment with our current law of consent in Hawaii for sexual intercourse. So once again, a 14-year-old having an abortion with no parental consent is just absolutely insane. So we're going to change that to 16.
Representative Bellotti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In opposition,
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, this floor amendment is unworkable and inconsistent with our age of consent law in Chapter 707-730 and 732. 14 has been long the age of minority for healthcare decisions, and would be changing it would impact many other decisions that are currently being made. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there further discussion on the floor amendment? Representative Pirik. Okay, members, we'll be taking a voice vote on the floor amendment. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The floor amendment fails.
Mr. Speaker, I make a point of order to take a hand count vote.
Representative Pirik. All right, members, a roll of division has been requested pursuant to Rule 54.1. 1/5 of the membership must vote in the affirmative for a vote by division. And you can signify this by raising your right hand. So all those in favor of a hand vote, please raise your right hand. Mr. Clark, how many hands have been raised?
Mr. Speaker, we count 5 hands.
All right, so the request is defeated. And we're back on the main motion, Senate Bill 1. Is there any discussion? Representative Bellotti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In strong support.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I begin my remarks, may I request that I can insert written comments?
So ordered.
And may I also insert, as part of my written remarks, a letter from the community in support of Senate Bill 1, Senate Draft 2, that was provided to all members of this body from 34 signatories, including the Lieutenant Governor Sylvia Luke.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 1, Senate Draft 2, does 3 critically important things at a time when access to reproductive health care and reproductive health care itself is under attack by politicians who should not be interfering in the private healthcare decisions of patients and their healthcare providers. First, this measure codifies and ensures the current rights and practices that have existed here in our state for nearly 50 years under Hawaii's historic 1970 law legalizing abortion, our state constitutional right to privacy that guarantees the fundamental right of privacy, which includes an individual's right to make their own healthcare decision regardless of age, and U.S. Supreme Court case law beginning with Griswold versus Connecticut, Eisenstadt versus Baer, and Roe v. Wade and its progeny that ensure the right to reproductive health care for all. Second, this measure modernizes our statutes to align with medical care, medical standards of care, and protects the private health care choices best made between a patient and their health care provider. Third, Senate Bill 1, Senate Draft 2 protects Hawaii's healthcare providers and patients from the efforts of other states who wish to impose criminal and civil liability in connection with reproductive health care services that have long been lawful in this state. Mr. Speaker, for all of these reasons, I stand in strong, unwavering support of Senate Bill 1, Senate Draft 2. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Representative Pirik.
In opposition.
Please proceed.
There was over 3,000 abortions in Hawaii in 2020. That's 3,000 innocent deaths, 3,000 sheddings of innocent bloods, according to my faith tradition, 3,000 murder, because there was undue the end of life in the mother's womb. As somebody who's received a doctorate degree in counseling, I've walked with women who've grieved after having had an abortion. They're sad that they've done it, they've regretted it, they wish it never happened. Life begins at the heartbeat, which is 5.5 weeks to 6 weeks. When we end a child's life, that's not good. There's a lot of no's that come from this caucus, but there is a yes, and the yes is forgiveness. God does offer forgiveness for those who murder their child, and I'm encouraging people to vote against the murderization
Point of order,
of children.
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Todd.
Murder is a legal term and should not be thrown around so loosely, perhaps.
Point of order, the representative from, I believe it's Maui,
Representative
is infringing
Perrick.
upon my freedom
Take
of
a
speech.
recess subject to the call of the chair. Recess. With House comes to order, Representative Perrick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In opposition.
Please proceed.
I'm standing on my First Amendment right to freely speak, to freely express my religious views, and that view is that life begins at conception, and that anything that would terminate the child's life, according to the Ten Commandments, is to kill the child, which in another basic English term is murder. Thank you.
All right, members, could you please refrain from implying motive and intent with respect to this legislation? Representative Perrick.
Mr. Speaker, in opposition.
Please proceed. This is your second time.
Abortion has intent. So we cannot discuss abortion unless it's somehow acted upon us by a third party that we have no consent on. So I have to convey that there is intent behind abortion, and that's why I'm speaking against it, because I'm against the intent behind killing life.
Representative Souza.
Mr. Speaker, yes, with reservations.
Please proceed.
I voted no yesterday on the floor during second reading for this measure and in the Judiciary Committee, but I did not feel comfortable voting that way because a woman has a right to choose, and it is a personal decision, which is separate from religious beliefs and individual beliefs. I've always fought for what I know to be right, morally, under the law, and in defense of the Constitution, And even though the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision reversed course and reserved the issue of abortion for the states, the spirit of the Roe decision lives on, and therein lies an inherent right to privacy. Hence, I respect the perspectives and admire the tenacity of the representative from Ka'u and the representative from Kauai when they shared their mana'o yesterday, and value their bravery and vulnerability to draw from their lived experiences. I have constituents on both sides of the coin when it comes to this issue, and this is the proper way to vote, to represent the voices of all of my constituents, and not just the more vocal conservative community members. The representative from Nanakuli made that point clear yesterday in this chamber, that the decision belongs to our community members, and I will add, the spectrum of voices and perspectives. I appreciate the viewpoints of my colleagues and respect the diversity of thought and opinions that each of you share as we collaborate in this building and share our mana'o on this floor. We all come from different backgrounds and faiths, and no member shall be persecuted if their vote does not succumb to the religious perspectives of another member. As a Shang Catholic, I spent my formative years at Marino Grade School from K through 6th grade, and as the representative from Makiki could attest to, the school's motto is noblesse oblige. To whom much is given, much is expected. This means to me that you lead through action, and in turn, those actions will bring glory to God. I should not have to feel like less of a Catholic or a Christian on this floor, or feel less worthy of God's favor because I do not subscribe to the sermons that have been prevalent throughout this session. Legislating from the pulpit is contrary to the separation of church and state, and has been so prevalent that even the good representative from Kalihi, one of the brilliant legal minds among us here in the House, has recently began to rebut statements made on this floor with Bible verses instead of the usual course of action with law, data, and policy perspectives. But in following in the same vein, I will leave you with this from James 4:12. There is only one lawgiver and judge, the one who is able to save and destroy. But you, who are you to judge your neighbor? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Quinlan,
With reservations, Mr. Speaker,
please proceed.
and may please have the words of the representative from Kapolei entered into the journal as if they were my own.
So ordered. Representative Garcia,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In opposition,
please proceed.
thank you. This bill is not needed, and I know this is a very emotional bill. There's people on both sides, and for decades in this country, those who are pro-life, those who are pro-choice, and the debate has gone on for a long time. But this bill is not needed because, like I said yesterday, if this bill were not to pass, abortion access will not be impacted whatsoever. So people are saying, you know, we're attacking women's rights. If the bill fails, women's rights is still there. They can still have abortions in Hawaii. So we can debate the morality of abortion, and I'm pretty sure you all know where I stand on it. But in this speech, I want to focus on the nonpartisan problem of this bill, which is parental consent. I believe that the vast majority of parents in our state agree that a 14-year-old child should not be allowed to make decisions to have medical surgeries with no parental consent. Like I had said yesterday, 14-year-olds need parental consent for a school field trip, to get a flu shot, to get a tattoo or a piercing, but not for a surgical decision which will forever impact the life of that young girl. It's horrifying to see the amount of bills this session being pushed through these halls, stripping parents of their basic and fundamental rights over their children. Mr. Speaker, Hawaii's keiki does not belong to government. They belong to their parents and their families. And how dare government step in the way of parental rights? Lastly, I must say, our state's motto, "Ua mau ke eo o ka aina I ka pono o Hawaii," the life of this land is perpetuated in righteousness. And the passage of this bill is unrighteousness. So God help us. Thank you.
Representative Lamasau,
With Mr. Speaker, with reservations, and may the words of my colleague from Kapolei be answered to the judge as if they were my own.
so ordered. Representative Peruso,
In strong support,
please proceed.
I'd like to remind the body that parental rights are not absolute. There are important reasons why a minor's autonomy should be protected for their health and safety. I think that as a teacher, I've had the experience of working with parents who did not adequately adequately care for their children, and it's been honestly a process working through having to protect children from abusive parents that has frankly shaped my life. And I think that this issue before us reminds us that, you know, ideally every child would grow up in a supportive and home with open lines of communication where parents help their children make these decisions respecting their autonomy as people. But that's not the reality of every child who grows up. They don't necessarily grow up with the safety they deserve. And this bill is for those teens. Families are sacred, but they are not immune to violence and abuse of all forms. And government coercion cannot create this safety. As the New Jersey Supreme Court found when it held the state's parental notice law unconstitutional, a law cannot transform a household with poor lines of communication into a paradigm of the perfect American family. All of the major medical associations support the minor's right to choose for themselves because mandating parental involvement in unsafe situations puts teens' health at risk and does not create healthier families. Thank you.
Representative Ganadan.
Mr. Speaker, in strong support.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, though member speech is a protected right, the public must be protected from misinformation. I believe we have a duty to rectify when misinformation is being spread in our tenuous and shared democracy. Yesterday on second reading and today, the issue of parental consent has gotten much attention. As the health chair noted, HRS 707-730 and 732 have been the law for decades. The age of consent in Hawaii is 16 years old. At this age, any person may legally consent to sexual activity with another person who has also reached the age of consent. Importantly, Mr. Speaker, there is an age gap provision to avoid the common practice of criminalizing teenage sexual activity. Persons at least 14 years old can consent to activity with a person who is less than 5 years older than them. Persons under 14 cannot consent to any sexual activity under any circumstances. Consent to STD and HIV testing begins at 14. By practice, prenatal care also begins at 14. Mr. Speaker, not passing this bill to protect pregnant people and their hardworking, well-educated healthcare providers that care for them in our communities may lead to an increase in infant and mother mortality. This morning, the CDC produced a report noting that maternal death rates surged by nearly 40% during the second year of the pandemic, widening disparities for women of color and those living in poverty throughout the United States. Because there are people in our communities that are against this measure, it should be said that there is something counterintuitive about passing laws that protect abortion. Mr. Speaker, guided by faith in humanity and in support of human life, I vote yes.
Representative Kitagawa.
With reservations, please.
So ordered. Representative Alcos.
Mr. Speaker, I oppose this bill.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, colleagues, I just want to apologize if I hurt anyone in this room yesterday and even today. I'm not here to hurt anybody. I'm here because of the bill and the word is in this bill because my word, our word, means a lot, and this is the law that we're making. I'm not attacking anybody who's writing the bill. So I oppose this bill as a father and also fathers of mine in my community. When my daughter is at a young age, or my son, they got a nightmare. They run into your room, you give them a hug, maybe you sleep with them. As they get older, during the longer years, they fall in love with boyfriends, and they get crushed and they get hurt. And we turn back to them and we want to hug them, we want to love them, we want to cry with them. And those are crucial moments in their life where we be there as parents for our keikis. Now this bill, not allowing, I'm not saying not allowing, the keiki has the right to not to speak to the parent because the keiki is scared. She is scared. I can imagine how scared she must be because she don't want to look at the dad's eyes because she's afraid of how he might respond. But we cannot push that aside. I understand that some families don't have a dad. Understand that's why sometimes we get grandmothers, aunties, and uncles, someone that we grew up close with, adults, to able to counsel, to speak, to love, to share, and to cry with them, to hold them. To hold them as long as it can. Maybe it might take months, maybe it might take years. But taking that away and making a young child to live her life not knowing that she could count on her parents or her dad without giving them that option. I mean, I'm sorry, the option is there. But she is scared. And I want to be there. And other parents like me want to be there for them. And if someone get raped, what we tell them in adults, they seek counseling. They seek help. They speak and tell. But they're not going to speak and tell to a little kid. They're going to speak and tell and get help from an adult, someone who's professional, someone who can able to give love and share and care, and someone who went through it, and someone with experience. Mr. Speaker, all I'm saying is that these are our kids, and this bill is shoving something surgically inside of them. And I can't think about, it breaks my heart. And I'm not here to hurt anyone, like I said. It breaks my heart that I have to see not just my kid, but other kids cannot turn to their kapuna, to their family, to the loved one, to that support. Mr. Speaker, I'm protecting the parents as well. I'm protecting our keikis with the love and with the support that hopefully we can give them. Thank you.
Representative Chica.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong support.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, this bill does not make it illegal for children to communicate with their parents about their healthcare decisions should they feel that they are in a supportive and safe environment. This bill protects everyone else who do not have the same supportive home environment and where this does not exist. Mr. Speaker, women do not have a responsibility to have children. Women do not assume this responsibility just by deciding to have sex. They certainly should not be mandated to have children just by virtue of being pregnant. Mr. Speaker, I believe that the right to life means protecting a woman's right to her life, an individual's right to choose what to do with that life, and with their body and with their healthcare choices. It means being able to protect a woman's right to decide when to start a family. I believe that that right belongs to a woman alone and it should not be made by any single politician. I thank the Senate for sending this bill over, and I'm proud to be standing with the majority who are standing up for women's reproductive rights, and I'm proud to be a resident of this state that's setting an example for the rest of the nation. Mahalo.
Representative Martin.
Thank you, Speaker. I stand in strong support.
Please proceed.
In 1970, when the members of this same body made our state the first in the nation to legalize abortion, I imagine it was a very difficult process. They were truly leaders when it came to valuing the lives, health, rights, and choices of women. They responded to the calls of my mother's generation, a generation where women became sterile or died due to unsafe, illegal abortions. Because of their work, women in my generation and those younger have never known that type of suffering. Now, 53 years later, because of efforts by mainland, political, and judicial bodies to intrude in our state, we find the need to safeguard these existing rights as well as to codify into law protections for our healthcare workers who provide abortion services that are legal in our state. We will not let these outside influences intrude, just as we respect women enough to restrain ourselves from intruding in their most private and difficult healthcare choices. These are choices that a woman or a girl may make for many reasons. And if there are some in this body who are trying to decide in their own moral judgment what they think is an okay reason for a woman to make that choice. If there are any at all, I want to share an image that I saw on a sign of a rally last year here, where a young woman had a sign that had a chart that said reasons women choose to have abortions, a pie chart. The biggest portion of the chart said, none of your darn business, and then the smaller sliver of that chart said, also none of your darn business. Thank you, Speaker.
Is there further discussion, members? Representative Prusso, second speech.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm slightly more collected now, so I wanted to add a little bit of data and evidence to our conversation. A national survey of more than 1,500 unmarried minors having abortions in states without parental involvement laws showed that 61% of pregnant teens discuss the decision to have an abortion with at least one of their parents. And a majority of teens who did not talk to a parent turned to another trusted adult. The younger the teen, the more likely they were to have voluntarily discussed the abortion with a parent. In fact, 90% of minors under 15 involved a parent in their decision to have an abortion. For teens who do not confide with a parent, they tend to have good reasons for doing so, which I briefly alluded to earlier, such as a fear that their disclosure will exacerbate an already volatile or unsafe situation. One study showed that 22% of teens who did not tell a parent about their abortion decision feared that if they told their parents, they would be kicked out of the house. Just under 10% feared that they would be physically abused because their parents had done so before. Of those who did not tell a parent, 12% did not live with either parent, and 14% who had parents who abused drugs or alcohol. So again, Mr. Speaker, I would like to reiterate the importance of this measure to protect our young people and the decisions that they have the autonomy and authority to make about their bodies.
Is there further Representative Tam?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In support,
please proceed.
I just want to have the words of the representative from Wahiawa inserted into the journal of this as if they are my own.
So ordered.
And some more brief remarks. First, I want to thank the Health and Judiciary Chair for their work on this bill. Mr. Speaker, it's important to note that not all minors have supportive parents with whom they are able to discuss a pregnancy with, and unfortunately, in some cases, it is the trusted adult that is responsible for the pregnancy. Allowing young women to have autonomy over their bodies and to make their own choice is essential. It can be even life-saving. Mr. Speaker, I also strongly believe in the separation of church and state, but some members of this body seem to only be able to find a biblical justification to vote down this bill. So if you're persuaded by the Bible, I recite Matthew chapter 7, verse 1, which says, "Judge not, lest ye be judged." Frankly, with all due respects, no man can ever understand this choice, and we cannot judge it. Women are aware of their circumstances, their wants, and their medical needs, and they are fully capable of making this choice, and it is one that no legislative body has a right to infringe upon. Hawaii has a long and proud history of supporting the rights of women. We were the first state in the union to legalize abortion in 1970, 3 years before the federal Roe versus Wade decision. When the law was passed, personal experiences and stories were shared about how rich girls went to Japan and poor girls bled out in Chinatown. Abortion is and has always been a socioeconomic issue, and the political agenda has never been about the sanctity of life, but to create barriers and maintain the status quo of keeping women in their place and perpetuating cycles of discrimination and poverty. When the law passed, the Hawaii legislature listened to their stories, they listened to the doctors, and most importantly, they listened to the women. Like I said, we have a long and proud history of not only supporting and upholding women's rights, but championing them. In these times where so many women's rights are being violated, we must continue to champion the strength and liberties of women. This bill champions that, and it continues us in the direction that we've been walking forward for 53 years, and we will never take a single step backwards. Thank you.
Representative Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support of the measure before us.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a husband and proud father of 2 beautiful daughters, this is by far the most consequential vote I'll be casting this legislative session. I don't know how long I'll be a member of this body, but I'm very grateful that here as a freshman, I'm in a position to ensure that all women in Hawaii can continue to have unfettered access to reproductive health care. My yes vote today also means I stand in solidarity with all the dedicated healthcare professionals in our community who, with the passage of this bill, can continue to focus on providing life-saving care without worrying about governmental intrusion into the intimate, private healthcare decisions of their patients. So, Mr. Speaker, for these reasons and many more, I stand in strong support of SB 1, ST2. Thank you very much.
Representative Alcos.
Second time, Mr. Speaker.
Please proceed.
I oppose to this bill. Again, family, men, women, please stand up to supporting your family, your keikis, and youth. Please depend on your parents as much as you can, because even though sometimes your house going to be really hard to deal with, but your family is the best thing that you can count on, and they're always going to be there majority of the time. So, and that's for majority of the family, not all family, Mr. Speaker, I'm talking about, but majority of family. Family is important, and that's what they should lean on. Thank you.
Representative Bellotti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In strong support, second time, and I promise this is my last time.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, in rebuttal to the representative from Kapolei District 42, in researching and looking at this issue, I want to call upon the voice from a past, another representative, also Psyche, but this time Patricia Psyche, who in 1968 on this very floor said, "I am fairly certain that we would not be deliberating this bill here today if we had not received tremendous support from the people of this state. Support from a wide variety of organizations representing a clear cross-section of the entire community." This same representative, this strong Republican woman with clarity of purpose, shared in 2018 her story as to why she was in favor of the abortion bill at that time. And it has to do with the very reasons why we are passing this bill, to provide protections for our healthcare providers. Representative Psyche then, in a 2018 oral interview, spoke about how she, as the wife of an OBGYN, would be awakened at 2 a.m. in the morning by her husband, who's received a phone call from a patient who went to an illegal abortionist and is now losing blood and is going to die without his help. You know that something's got to be done. Patricia Psyche said he would wake me up and we would go to his office. We couldn't put on the lights because then we would signal that something was going on. The police would come. So we would then use flashlights, and I was the lamp holder. In other words, I had held the lamp over the patient while my husband then cleaned out the situation to save her life and save her from the ramifications of the illegal abortionist. Mr. Speaker, without this law, our healthcare providers are in criminal and civil jeopardy. We know that because we have seen actions by other state actors and members of other states already trying to take action against providers in other states. This bill is critical. Representative Patricia Psyche knew it then, and we know it now, and I stand proudly with this body to pass this measure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First and foremost, Congresswoman Psyche is a wonderful...
You're still in opposition?
Yes, in
Please
strong
proceed.
opposition. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Congresswoman Psyche did a lot for this state and this country. And unlike some caucuses in this building, we are a big tent with differing perspectives, and we don't follow like sheep and vote in line.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Quillen.
I'd ask that you strike the words following like sheep.
Please, Representative Garcia, please confine your remarks to the
Will
measure
do,
before
will
us.
do. What was mentioned was, I keep hearing separation of church and state. For some reason, some people think, Mr. Speaker, that means you cannot vote on something based upon your personal religious convictions. That's not in any way what that means. Separation of church and state is simply this: the government shall never compel the church what to do, and the church shall never compel the government what to do. I keep hearing government overreach into someone's right to choose. What about government overreach in parental rights? And it seems like it's fun to quote scripture today on the floor, so let me just read from Matthew 18 and verse 6. "But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, It would be better for him to have a great millstone fastened around his neck and to be drowned into the depths of the sea.
Is there further discussion, members? Representative Ichiyama,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support.
please proceed.
Permission to insert written comments into the journal.
So ordered.
I also just wanted to share with my colleagues that there was a recent poll done in February statewide of Hawaii voters, and that 84% believe that it is important for lawmakers, for us, to ensure that current rights, including the right to access abortion and reproductive health care, are protected. An additional 79% agree that all people, regardless of age, should make their own reproductive health care decisions, including abortion. And then finally, Mr. Speaker, 70% overwhelmingly disagreed with the Supreme Court's decision to overturn almost 50 years of precedent in Roe v. Wade. Mr. Speaker, I think that's very clear, very resounding, and that's why I'm, in addition to many other reasons, are in support of this measure. Thank you.
Representative Lowen,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In strong support, and I'd like to adopt the words of the representatives from Makiki and Moanalua.
so ordered. Is there further discussion? Representative Amato.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand in strong support of SB1 SD2 and request that my comments from yesterday's floor session, March 16th, be inserted to the journal, and I
So
here
ordered.
also add further comment.
Please proceed.
Because of the recent Dobbs ruling, many states have banned or severely restricted access to abortion and now restrict human rights and reproductive freedoms through criminal penalty. This includes not only desperate patients seeking help, but also medical providers. Indiana has sued doctors helping rape victims. Missouri has paralleled Texas's gun legislation tactics by allowing anyone to sue someone providing aid to a patient. This means a mother, a father, a friend, even a doctor. Criminalizing medical care is simply unacceptable. This is a clear case where we, as state legislators, must stand up and protect the rights of our citizens, including our dedicated, hardworking healthcare providers. We've heard a lot of talk about constitutional protections, and yes, some of it from me. I am again compelled to point out that the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution provides a right to privacy. Further, Article 1, Section 6 of the Hawaii Constitution states, "The right of the people to privacy is recognized and shall not be infringed without the showing of compelling state interest. The legislature shall take affirmative steps to implement this right." We are all sworn to follow this and take those steps today. Both federal and state constitution wisely prevents overreach in matters of privacy and therefore protects a pregnant person's liberty to choose to have an abortion without excessive government knowledge and the subsequent restriction. I am a mother of 3 young women. I value my right to privacy. I value your right to privacy. I live in Kihei, Hawaii, not Beijing nor Moscow. I am proud to live in a country where human rights like privacy and health care are respected and supported, a state where medical professionals are protected, and a society where our Constitution is understood and upheld with noble actions from many of my honorable colleagues. We must support our people, not criminalize those who need help. I stand in support of our Hawaii Constitution, which I have sworn to uphold. I stand in support of people in desperate need. I stand in support of our noble medical practitioners. I stand in support of SB1 and of human rights. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Onishi.
Thank you, Speaker. Can I get a ruling on a potential conflict of interest?
Please state your potential conflict.
My daughter is a registered nurse.
The ruling is that there's no conflict.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry?
The ruling is that there's no conflict.
Thank you, sir. And I stand in strong support, and I'd like to have the words from the representative from Makiki added as if they were my own.
So ordered. Representative Nakamura.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I'd like to thank I support this bill. I'd like to first thank the Health Chair and Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs Chair for overseeing this bill in the House. I'd like to recognize our representative from Salt Lake for spending a lot of time during the interim working with all of the women organizations to help craft this bill. I'd also like to thank our Republican members for agreeing and supporting 95% of this effort to modernize the abortion laws in Hawaii. On this issue of consent, parental consent, a couple months ago, probably was last month, that I met with OBGYNs who have the task of performing abortions in our state. And they said that in alignment with statistics shared by our representative from Wahiawa, that most of the girls who come in have a parent, one or two parents with them when they come in to do the abortion. But there are situations, Mr. Speaker, where this is not the case, where a family member is the cause of the abortion, the need for the abortion, and it is a very difficult situation to be in. I struggled myself as a parent with a daughter, and it was my daughter who convinced me when she was in college that, Mom, not everyone has the kind of relationship that we have, one that is based on trust and open communications, that she had friends that did not have this type of relationship, that they cannot speak to a parent who may be abusive or not in their lives. So I think on this one issue of parental consent, we have to, I'm in strong support of this measure, and I believe that all women and all of our young women have the right to choose what to do with their bodies. And I just want to acknowledge all of the work that went into creating this bill before us. Thank you.
Representative Eveslin.
Thank you, Speaker. In strong support.
Please proceed.
In addition to the right to privacy and legal protection for medical providers, as my colleagues have spoken about well, while all women in Hawaii do have a right to an abortion on the outer islands, that right is often hard to practice. On the island of Kauai, surgical abortions are non-existent, and medication abortions are hard to come by. So people who can afford to can fly up to Oahu, spend a week on Oahu, go into a hotel room and receive abortion services. Those who cannot afford to are left behind. And I've heard many, many stories from friends and constituents on Kauai. And in this bill, by expanding access to ensure that physician assistants can perform certain types of abortions, including medication abortions, is critical for the outer islands, especially Kauai, to ensure that those who need those services can receive those services. Thank you.
Is there further discussion on this measure? Representative Capella.
Mr. Speaker, in strong support.
Please proceed.
I've said a lot. I still feel the impact of yesterday. I think that what people may not understand if you've never had to go through something like this is that it's such an emotional decision. Regardless of what anyone chooses, it is deeply emotional and you carry it for the rest of your life. It also changes every single aspect of your life. I wouldn't be sitting in this chair if it wasn't for Planned Parenthood, and I know that. And I would like to thank every single member that stood up today to support a woman or a pregnant person's right to choose what they do with their body. I would also like to thank the many, many individuals across the state who have advocated for this issue. And to anyone who is experiencing this choice, know that whatever choice you choose, you are brave and you are loved.
Representative Morikawa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wasn't going to stand up today, but I have to. I'm in strong support of this. I'm just thankful that way back when I made my mistake, abortion was legal, and I was able to get it on Kauai, which was absolutely amazing. I was a straight-A student, I had aspirations to go to college, to become a social worker, perhaps a psychologist, although I ended up being an accountant. But for sure, I would not be here today if I didn't have that choice. Mr. Speaker, it was my body, it was my future, it was my right, and it was my choice. Thank you.
All right, members, Representative Kahaloa,
In strong support,
please proceed.
thank you for everyone who shared their words today, their feelings on this bill, and I'm just excited to be here as we make this decision and vote today. It's really important that it is a difficult choice, but the merits of this bill are great because it offers choice, and that's why this bill is important. We're not telling people what they can or cannot do. We're allowing that choice reign, and that it is a personal decision, like the representative from Ka'u has mentioned. It's personal, it's difficult, it's emotional, but we are allowing women to have the flexibility of that choice, and I'm honored that we get to vote today to honor choice and allow choice to be had for any woman that has had to make a choice in their life. So thank you.
Is there further discussion? If not, we'll be taking the vote. Before taking the vote, the chair would just like to thank all of the members for your civility and perspective this afternoon. Representative Morikawa for the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the measure before us, all majority members vote aye with the exception of the following. Representatives Kila and Kong vote no.
Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the measure before us, all minority members vote aye with the exception of the following. Representative Matsumoto, Garcia, Ward, Perrick, and Alcos vote no.
All right, members, have all votes been cast? If so, said measure passes third reading. We're on announcements. Members, are there any announcements? Representative Quinlan.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for that robust discussion. But today is St. Paddy's Day, on a lighter note. And on St. Patrick's Day, everybody is Irish. And as has now become an annual tradition, we've received a care package from our friend, Senate President Mark Daly in Ireland. And he sent us an Irish flag. So when we've concluded all this and we gavel out, I invite you guys all to come up to the rotunda and take a picture with the Irish flag with all of us. Thank you.
Representative Ward.
Thank you, Speaker. That is a great reminder of a great day for the Irish, but there's also a great day for civilized society. And Speaker, I first want to note what you said about the civility. I think everybody agreed to disagree. That's really a bonus for all of us in representing our people in a way that doesn't go to the person, but goes to the issue. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, a very important announcement I have is that when we were in recess, the 1 year of the Ukrainian war took place. But today, the announcement is that Mr. Putin has been charged by the International Court in Hague for, and I read specifically, war crimes. And it's with that warrant for his arrest that was issued in The Hague. Mr. Speaker, I say that in the sense that there may be something shifting in that particular situation, but I want to remind people, if you're war weary, we still have the Ukrainian flags. Speaker, thank you for giving the lapel. Are there any of these left that are still there? We still have some flags in our office if you're there, so please don't weary in your well-doing for that. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, remember the Zelensky and his support for what is otherwise freedom for the people of Europe and America. Thank you, Speaker. I know a little bit unusual announcement, but it's important for what Mr. Putin is getting from the World Court today. Thank you.
Are there further announcements as opposed to breaking news? Representative Nakamura.
Permission for a late introduction.
Please proceed.
I'd like to recognize members of the Patsy Mink PAC who are here and who have been strong advocates.
All right, for the motion to adjourn, Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand adjourned until 12 o'clock noon, Monday.
Representative Garcia.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. The House stands adjourned until 12 noon Monday.